Hey guys, Seaweed from Tribal Soup Project here. Welcome to another episode of SIMsational. You're watching the Ultimate Builder's Guide, and today we've got the 10th chapter, which is going to be all about landscaping. So we're going to cover everything from fences and how to use them and some really cool things that you can do with them. We are, of course, going to cover a usage of the different plants and trees. We're going to cover making flower beds. We're going to cover terrain paints. And of course, we are going to add the landscaping to this lovely house that we have built together throughout the course of the guide. And this video ended up being a bit longer than I had intended because there's actually a lot that goes into doing landscaping really well. So I've actually decided to split this chapter up into two videos. And I am going to post the second video today. So you should be able to have that after you watch this video. If you're ready, if you want to move on right away, you can go ahead and move on and watch the next video, or you can save it for later. So yeah, we are going to kickstart this off with what you should do before beginning to landscape. So before you begin actually doing your landscaping, there's a couple things that you want to consider before you start. The first thing that you want to consider is the world at which your lot is in. Kind of take a look at the world surrounding the lot and see the kinds of different plants and trees there are and the kind of landscaping design that was used. This way, when you go to do the landscaping of your lot, it's not like some kind of stark contrast or difference from the rest of the world around you. I mean, unless that's what you're going for. If you're like totally going for, if you're over in like Oasis Springs and you really want to make some kind of tropical paradise in the middle of the desert, then yeah, you're not going to use the different plants that the rest of the world has. But for something like, for instance, like what we're doing with this house, how it's a residence, I'm really going to want to try and stay true to how the surrounding area looks. So we are first going to talk about fencing. And the fences are located over here at the little house right on top of the little patio area. And when we click on it, we have all of these lovely different fences that are available for us to use. And almost all of them come in different colors that you can simply change out by clicking on this little color swatch and changing them to the desired color. And the fences are all different as well. You have some of them that are very low, like this hazard tape, and like there's a fence for window shopping. And these are just kind of like what it seems to me that it would be used if you are going to mark off some kind of temporary area, is what at least I would use them for. The next kind of fences that we have available are these short fences that would be used as like a garden bed or some kind of a border for a walkway. And then, of course, we have our regular run-of-the-mill fences that you would use to fence in your backyard or fence in your entire property, and even to use to kind of enclose a balcony. So the game does give us more than one way of which we can apply these fences. We're actually going to go ahead and start with the one at the bottom, and that's the replace fences. What this does is this either replaces one fence for another kind of fence. It could replace a wall, a completely tall wall, or even one of the half walls. And it can also be used to actually just place a fence where it's obvious to the game where you would want something such as that, as in to enclose a room or a patio. So let's say I wanted to go ahead and put this iron rail fencing around this deck of this house. I could do this very quickly by using the replace fence tool by simply clicking on replace fences and then clicking on the desired fence and then simply putting it up against where I want, and I'm simply clicking my mouse in order to make that a permanent fixture. And then if I decide at a later time, I really don't like that fence on there and I really want to have something more like this instead, then I can very easily replace it with the fence replacer in the same exact fashion, just like so. And as I had mentioned, you can also replace an entire wall or half wall with a fence like so. And now we have this really weird looking house. So let's go ahead and put that back. So the next way that the game actually gives us in order to apply a fence is the what I like to call the draw a box method. And it works in the same exact fashion as the wall tool did, where we're simply going to click on a point and drag it out to create a completely enclosed square. And this can also be used to completely enclose your entire property with a fence, even if you've already built your structure. Now, we cannot place a fence right up against the edge of a property. You do have to be one entire grid box in order to place a fence. So we're going to begin right here with one grid square in on all sides. And we're going to click and simply drag our fence all the way out to the opposite edge of the property, like so. And now we have a completely cool enclosed property. And we're ready to go ahead and add a gate onto it, which is located right here next to the fences where the mouse over says gates, of course. And we are free to go ahead and use whatever size gate we want with whatever size fence. So if I wanted to use a really small gate with a really tall fence, I could simply do that by dragging it over and placing it. If I wanted to have a really tall gate with a very short fence, I'm free to do that as well. But we cannot place gates right next to each other like so if we do not have a certain cheat enabled that allows us to do that. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the next object that is next to the gates, and that's these stair railings. And these work in the same exact way as the replace fence worked, where you simply have to choose the one you want and then drag it over to your stairs and it will automatically place them on, regardless of whether it matches or not. Just like that. So let's go ahead and get rid of that one. So the last way of which we have to apply fences is our freehand drawing tool, located right above the place fence enclosure. So the freehand drawing tool works in the same exact fashion as the freehand drawing wall tool did, where we simply click on a point and then drag and then release to place. And this allows us to draw angles and create all sorts of interesting designs. It also works in the same way as it did with the walls, where I'm going to zoom in a little, and if you look at the top of my fence drawing tool, when I hold down Control on my keyboard, I get that little X that pops up. And that simply means that anywhere that I draw, the fence is actually going to be removed. And you can also use this to remove sections of wall as well, if that's what you wanted to do. So we can draw our fence anywhere in the game. We can draw a fence on the ground, on the patio, inside the house, on top of the roof to create a sun deck. And like I had said, the only place we cannot draw the fence is going out to the edge of the property. So let's say I wanted to enclose the backyard of this house in with a fence. When I go to enclose the backyard of my house, that has an elevated foundation like we do. I do not want to begin drawing over here at the house like so. Because as you can see, if I do that, then a section of foundation is going to be carried underneath the fence so that it meets the foundation of the house. But if I begin drawing the fence over here, not next to the house, then I can simply put it right up against the house like so, and there's no weird looking terrain, or not terrain, there's no weird looking foundation that goes underneath them. So, because of the fact that we can draw fences anywhere, this also allows us to create balconies with fences. So, let's say I wanted to have like a long balcony over that goes across the entire house of the second floor. Then I can actually use the fence tool in order to create that balcony. So I'm going to grab my fence and use the freehand drawing tool. And I'm simply going to begin over here at the corner of my structure. And I'm going to draw out away from the house. Let's have it like 3 spaces out like so. And then I'm simply going to continue drawing all the way over to where I want. Excuse me, let me back up a little. All the way over to here. And then one more time to enclose it in like so. And automatically, as soon as the area is completely closed in, a floor has been met there, and we can go ahead and tile it. And then we can add our different freezes in order to make it look cooler, or maybe one of the trims like so it doesn't look all weird. And then we also have available to us to use if we want to create something so it looks like there's something actually supporting that balcony. We can come in here with a column, but of course we would have to have, because we have a high foundation here, we would have to have the patio that sticks out just as far so that we can add a column like so. But when I think about landscape design, in my head, what I usually see big sprawling gardens with flowers that surround trees or back right up against the house. And they're usually packed pretty tightly with the flowers. And the problem with this in the game is that because we're working with a grid, the objects automatically want to snap to the grid in a certain way, and it doesn't allow us to have any overlapping. So even if I want to, now we can get pretty close with these flowers, but it's not always as close as we would like. Like I can get pretty close like that, but if I wanted to come at an angle like that, it's not going to allow me to do that, and I'm going to have to move it out, and then I'm going to have this weird gap, and it's not really the effect that I ideally want to create. So, fortunately for us, we do have cheats for build mode that allow us to overlap objects, and then as a really cool addition to that, we also have other cheats that we can enter to give us access to objects that we don't usually have access to. There's like, if when you're looking around the game, like from here, how there's this really cool fence that goes along here, and there's these fences, and then you'll find like different kinds of flowers and trees and vines hanging on top of stuff, and we don't actually usually have access to that. But there are cheat codes that will allow us to have access to those objects. So we're going to go ahead and enter in some of these building cheat codes in order for us to create a more full and beautiful garden, at least in my opinion. So, excuse me. The first thing that we need to do is open up the cheat box by pressing and holding Control Shift and the letter C on the keyboard. And when the cheat box opens up, the first cheat that we're going to enter in will allow us to overlap objects, and that code is bb.moveObjects. And then we hit enter, and the drop down has opened up, letting us know that the cheats have been turned on. The next code we're going to enter will allow us to have access to some of the hidden objects that we don't usually have access to. And that code is bb.show hidden objects. And then we hit enter. And this is one of those codes that nothing lets us know that it's been turned on, but I know that it's turned on because I know I typed it correctly because I typed this code a million freaking times, so I better type it correctly. So then another addition to that is there is another code that gives us access to over 1,000 more objects that we're usually not supposed to have access to. And that code is a bb.show live edit objects. And then we hit enter. And to close the cheat box, I'm simply going to hit escape on my keyboard, and poof, it is gone like magic. And now we have access to a lot of other things that we didn't have access before, and we can overlap objects. So the way that you see all these different hidden objects is by coming over here to the search bar and typing in debug. Now, let's say there's a certain kind of tree that you know is going to be in that section, and you really just want that tree, and you don't really want to go through looking at a million trillion things because they're not really organized in any real way, and you're going to have to go through the whole list. Then you can filter items over here, but there's like a whole bunch of them. So if like you really want to know what objects are with what, then you'll kind of just have to go through them yourself. But just so that you know, you can come over here to the search bar and type in debug, and then we hit enter, and then we wait. And here we have access to all these really freaking cool objects that we didn't have access before, like that. All right, so now that we have our move object cheat on, I am free to go ahead and put this gate right up against the other gate so I can have a slightly wider opening for my Sims to go through. We're actually going to talk about some cool things that you can do with fences that will greatly enhance your landscaping. So like I had mentioned when we started talking about fences, is that there's different types of fences. There's fences that are almost completely flat against the ground, like the hazard tape. And then we have, our regular fences like these. But then we also have these really short fences that we can use to create either garden paths or like a little edging for a flower box. So let's go ahead and start this off. If we wanted to kind of have this tree surrounded by a low border, then we can certainly do that. So the thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to actually come over here to our walls and empty rooms so that we have access to our decks. So I'm going to take this small rounded deck, and I'm simply going to lay one there. Then I'm going to lay another one here, and before I connect it, I'm going to rotate it first so that when I connect it, I don't mess up. So, and then when you connect these together, you can see how the other fence that highlights yellow, so you're getting right up against it. And then I'm simply going to copy that one, rotate it, connect it, copy, rotate, and connect it to make a full circle right there, like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here with my freehand drawing tool, and I'm going to remove the fences that are in the center. So now we have just one big ring that we can actually size down if we want to size it down a little, because we don't really need it to be that big. So now what I'm going to do now that I have that ring is I'm going to come over here to my fences. And I am not those, these. And then I am going to choose a border for my actual fence for my flower bed. And I'm just going to choose like this low stone wall one. And I'm going to use the fence replacer tool to simply come in here and replace all these fences like so. Excuse me, my goodness. Replace. Come on, do it. Hey, there we go. That's the ticket. So, and I actually could make this a little bit smaller. Let's make it one space smaller so we have just a regular ring like so. Now we have a complete actual circle, and we can take our tree and we can move it right over there. Let's turn this way so we can actually see what we're doing. There we go, just like that. So now that we have our tree all enclosed in, we can simply come here with our sledgehammer. And because it's a completely closed in circle, the game is going to allow us to remove the floor at that, which leaves us open to put in all kinds of pretty flowers and whatnot to make it a nice and beautiful finished garden look. And let me just place a couple of these flowers here like so. So if you notice that I said that we could come in here with a sledgehammer if it's a completely closed in circle, that is going to bring me to something that actually kind of sucks, is that when we are using these different deck methods to create these borders, let me go ahead and grab one of these. So if I wanted to now, let's go ahead and put a fence on it. Let's put a fence with the fence replacer like this. Come on, you. Thank you. So now if I wanted to just delete that white part of it, it's not going to allow me to. It's going to actually take that rounded corner away with it. I'm not exactly sure why that is. But that does kind of suck. And the reason that kind of sucks is because, yeah, I could use one of the floor tiles. I could come in here with this grassy floor tile and kind of make it blend in with the grass, but it's not going to be the exact same color as the rest of the yard, and it's not going to be the exact same color as the rest of the world, so it does kind of stand out and look all awkward. And there is, if you wanted to leave it on there, there is a actual dirt floor one that you can put on here. And then all you would have to do is, you know, come in with your flowers and stuff. And that actually does look kind of natural because you're not going to really have a bunch of grass under where you planted flowers. It's actually going to be dirt like this. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. And that brings me to the next cool thing that we can do with these borders is we can create all kinds of cool little designs with the borders. So I'm going to come in here. And I am going to create a really cool garden bed with these borders. And then we're going to kind of talk about what I did and some of the things that you can and cannot do with it. So now that I have my garden beds already laid out, I wanted to take a second to talk to you about creating garden beds like this. I am not going to be able to continue this fence up all the way next to my house. It's not going to allow me to do that. And the reason that it's not going to allow me to do that is because yes, we can have like a foundation that's not connected to this height to the house be a different size than the foundation of the actual house. But we cannot have foundations of separate heights connecting with each other. So, because we're creating garden beds in this fashion, when I had talked about, we had the chapter on creating rooms and walls, the game reads this as being an actual room, even though it's like actually like a deck or a patio. A deck or a patio is really an outside room. So it's not going to allow us to connect the fence all the way up to the house. We're only going to be able to go that far, which I mean, it's okay to have it like that. You can't really tell, especially when if I come in here with a bunch of flowers or something, you can't really tell that there's a space there at all. So another really cool way that we can create flower beds is actually by using one of the debug objects. And I'm not entirely certain if this is a base game object or if it comes from an expansion. It doesn't have like a little icon telling me that it's from an expansion. But when I click base game, it also doesn't show up. Then maybe I just didn't find it. I'm not exactly sure. But these are available for us to use, and like there's not like a little logo for a certain expansion. How like if I come down, let me come down a little further and show you what I mean. So yeah, so you see how these objects have the little icon in the top left. That's because it's from Jungle Adventure. These little flower beds don't have any icons at all, and they are a really neat way to make different shaped flower beds. If I can only find them. Let me start up here at the top. Here they are. Here they are. We already have all these really cool pre-made flower objects that we can have it, at that size, or we can, you can make scale objects to make them bigger by holding down shift and then hitting the right hand bracket to make them bigger, and then holding shift and hitting the left hand bracket to make them smaller. The only thing about them is that they do have kind of a curved center in them. So like if I were to take this object, you're not going to be able to see all the way down to the root. And if we really wanted to see all the way down to the root, then we would have to lift this up simply by pressing and holding the Alt key and hitting the number 9 to raise up, and then holding Alt and hitting 0 to lower it back down. So these little pre-made flower beds, they come in all different really neat shapes like this that you can mix and match and just get really creative with it. So moving on from that, I am going to show you guys another really cool thing that you can do using these fences. So the last really cool thing that we can use these fences for are to create a kind of a winding path. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a winding path that goes from this gate all the way up to the stairs. And we're going to use the same method as we did to create these rounded fences, except this time when we go to place them, we're not going to use the ones that already have a fence on them because there's going to be a lot of them and it'll just be a little bit too hard to actually see what we're doing, be a little bit confusing with them on there. So we're going to go ahead and use these flat rounds. And if you don't have your show hidden objects cheat on, then the only one you're going to have available is this really big one. And we really need to have a small one. So you're just going to have to size this down so that you have 3 grid squares going across and then 3 grid squares going back. So we're going to get rid of this one. And we're going to start. Now, this is going to look a little bit funny starting out until we go to add our fences on there. So it's going to look funny, but I promise you the finished product is going to look really good. So we're going to start with this one, and we're just going to begin right here. We're going to place this right here up against the edge of the stairs like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to place it over here, and then I'm simply going to rotate it. I'm going to rotate it so that we have the curved edge going in opposing directions. And then I'm simply going to connect these two together at that point. Then I am going to continue placing these. I'm going to copy this one and connect it to this one. And then I'll copy this one and connect it to this one. Oops, I didn't hit copy. I'm going to copy that and connect it to that one. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this one and connect it to that one like that. So, oh my God, I did it again. Jesus, seaweed, get it together, lady. There. Voila. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this. And I am going to place this right here. So what I want you to imagine is oops, that's not placed in the correct place. There. Like that. So what we're looking for is I want you to imagine a little string that goes from this point to this point. You want these to be completely in line with this kind of weird partial square in between. So now that I have it like that, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to continue on with these just like I did that side, with copying and connecting and copying and connecting just like so. So now what I have left is this space right here. And when I go to copy this, it's a little bit big. And if I had the fence on there already, you would understand why. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and size this one down a bit. Just like that, because it's a much, maybe size it down and actually move it a little. Like, wait, let's size it down that way. And then let's also size it like so. Just like that. Does that look right? Yeah. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. That's how we want it, right there like that. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to come in with our fences. And I'm simply going to use the replace fence to place along the curved edges. Just like so, like that. Oops. Not that one. Just like that. And then what I'm going to use is I'm going to come here with the drawing tool. And then I'm going to connect these together like so. Oops, not far enough. Just like this. Just because it's easier to. Because it gets, like you saw, I was trying to place it where we don't actually want it to be. Like this. And then I'm free to go ahead and connect like this. And then I can come over with this one like this. And then I'm just going to go ahead and place it like that. Because I don't care. I guess I could have done another small one like this. But now I'm just going to continue this up. I'm going to go ahead and connect it to my stairs like so. And now I have a path. So the only thing that sucks about doing this is that we do have these white sections. Okay, so let me go ahead real quick and get rid of this little section because that's driving me a little crazy. And I'm just going to kind of continue this on up to here like so. Okay. So now the only thing that really kind of sucks are these white spaces on the outside of our path. So, but there is something that we can do about them. Even though we can't delete this by using the sledgehammer, the thing that we can do, the thing that we can do is we can come over here to the Draw Box Room tool. And I'm going to go ahead and draw a box this way, and then I'm going to draw a box this way. And I'm going to do that for all of the sections along here, like so. All right, so now that I have done that, what I can do is I can simply pick these up and throw them away. So I am going to throw all of these sections away, just like so. Boom. Boom. Be gone! Get out of here! All right, there we go. So now all I have left is this very small section of white on the outside. And that is something that is much more workable. So what I'm going to do is I am going to come over here to the dirt floor. And I'm going to go ahead and all you have to do is you grab your floor tile and you hold down the shift key on your keyboard and it makes that entire section of floor that color. So I am going to change all of those like that. And then what we can do is we can come in here with our flowers and just make like a pretty flowered path like so. And nobody would have ever known that there was this really ugly looking part out there, and it looks all clean and nice and pretty like that. And we are ready to come in with maybe a cool rustic look like that. Yeah, I kind of like the rustic one. Let's make like a little rustic stone path. And then, oops, and being sure not to go on the outside, you have to kind of do this in sections, like so. Just like that. Oops. And then to finish it off right over here like that. And then we would, of course, want to move our gate down here like that, or maybe choose a bigger gate, or maybe make like another section of fence there or something to kind of even it out. But you guys get the general idea of what we're doing and how to do it. So with those things said, I want to actually call your attention to the different floor patterns. And this is where we talk a little bit more about creating a textured look so that your build is more three-dimensional looking. Whenever you place a either wall pattern or a floor pattern on the exterior of your structure, you really want to try and pick something that's not going to be real flat. You want to pick something like these stones or any of the masonry or even one of the tiles. If you use something that is completely flat, like for instance, let's go ahead and use this one. I don't think it, well, that one does have lines. Which one doesn't? Let's see. There are some that really don't. It doesn't matter. Like this, okay. Like this one here. This one does have a little bit of texture in it. That's not so bad. There are a couple that, here we go. Like this one here. If you pick something that's completely flat like this, then it's actually going to completely take away from the three-dimensional effect that you have, because this is something that's like really odd and it just doesn't go. Everything else in the world has some kind of texture. Even that standard concrete that we have has texture. But if you pick something like this, your eye is immediately going to be drawn to that really flat place, and it's not going to do anything to help with your three-dimensional effect. So it's really important to pick a textured pattern, something that has shading or different colors in places, that's really going to give it that three-dimensional look and really make it pop. And you also, another thing to keep in mind too is when you're picking your exterior floor patterns to kind of use something that's going to go on the outside naturally, because unless you've got like a nightclub venue, you're probably not going to want to have carpet on the outside of your house. So, I mean, that maybe that's just me, but yeah. So, those are some really cool things that we can do with the fencing and floor patterns. And we now can talk a little bit about the actual flowers themselves and how to actually place them. Well, guys, that is going to be it for part one of landscape design. I will leave a link to landscape 2 down into the description below, where I'm going to cover everything from the very basics of placing plants to some very important tips that you really want to keep in mind when you are placing them. We're going to go over how to use the paint terrain tools and how to kind of create a pleasing effect with them as well. So yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that you learned something from watching it as well. Please feel free to leave any comments or questions down into the description below. If you like the video, it'll really help us out if you hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Go to the website. See some other cool stuff we got going on out there. We got some free music. We got some funny videos. Yada, yada, yada. Till next time, guys. Happy simming, and I'll catch y'all later. Goodbye.